All right, there's no intro today. All right, we should be on, I think, all platforms. No intro today. Hour late. I got to run an errand. I couldn't even do it. Woke up late. Scuffed morning. Don't know what we're going to do. So no intro. Okay? You deserve an intro, but I don't deserve to get lit to an intro. Anyway, we're actually back in court. I just woke up, Chad. And you know, I usually wake up at, my stupid ass, I should have went to sleep early last night. I want to sleep at, you know what time I want to sleep? I want to sleep at 5:30. No, 5:30 or 6. And I was like, I'm going to get up at 7. I'm going to get up at 8. Then I got up at 9:30 I got up, and then I had to just deal with my dogs for like 30 minutes, and then, yeah. Anyway, we rocking. I do got to run to the bank, but I don't know when that's going to happen, so I got to be on stream. Okay, all good. This is the closing arguments by the defense team that Mark Agnifilo is going to be doing. Britt, thank you for that. She says Diddy in 7. This is how Diddy's team is going to sum up the entire case. And by the way, they're going to give jury instructions and possibly get a time for deliberation today. Okay. By the way, today's a water day. I'm only drinking water. Don't ask. It's all about keeping your voice. Got to keep your voice. Okay. So, basically, there was a juror that was kind of late, kind of just like me. The judge starts by saying, hey, do you guys have all your exhibits? And the AUSA says we're still working on some of them. There's a lot of exhibits. And the judge is saying, why don't we give a laptop? Why do we not give the laptop to the jury till Monday? Okay. Today, we have the defense, the rebuttal, and then my charge. So the judge is actually kind of pushing it back to say, we could have them deliberate on Monday because apparently the government wanted to give a nice, easy way to have the jury be able to refer to the exhibit. So they prepared a laptop. They were going to prepare like 2 of them or something like that, right? And because they couldn't get it prepared by today, the judge is saying, hey, listen, we're not going to do too much other than the closing. Should be 4 hours. The rebuttal, don't know the time period on that. Probably is going to be like less than an hour. And then there's going to be charging instructions. And then any last minute matters that has to be discussed. Most stuff has been already discussed because they had that little conference that went on to 7 where they argued over what the jury could see. And it's in like 157 page like pamphlet or like so they're getting a whole little booklet. Anyway, the judge says the deliberations will start on Monday. I sent the parties my charge and verdict form. Okay, so the judge has finalized a charge and a verdict form. All right, the verdict form is simple. I think the judge agreed that he'll keep not guilty on the left side, but he'll say charge 1 or count 1 as to the racketeering statute. Do you find him guilty or not guilty? Clearly, for every count, they have to refer to the charging document because they'll tell you what's being charged, what's being alleged, and then they could look at some evidence and then argue with each other. The prosecutor wanted the jury to actually list out, I think it was a prosecutor, it might have been a defense. So if you found him guilty of racketeering, you have to put what predicate offenses. Remember, there's about 7 of them that he's actually accused of. Arson, bribery, sex trafficking, and a bunch of other ones. They wanted the jury to list which ones, right? Now, I believe the judge said that wasn't necessary. That was like overkill. But that's why they're getting these 2 documents, all right? So it looks like deliberation is going to be starting on Monday. And now Garagos basically says, hey, could I confer with Agnifilo, right? They do that for a minute. Then Garagos says, about Mia, Agnifilo would like to show Exhibit 1727 on an easel. We had to redact her name so no one in the gallery could see her face. But the government wants to put a Post-it note over her face. The judge says, how are you supposed to place it? And it said, test it. So it looked like they have a picture of Mia and they want to put a Post-it note over her face. It's probably exhibits of pictures of like, hey, these people said that Diddy did all this monstrous stuff to them, yet years after they all took pictures with Diddy, they all hung out with Diddy, right? Mia is Sarah Schnecker, right? The person who was making these videos saying, Diddy, I love you, this and third, even though she claimed Diddy raped her before, right? So I guess they want to put up these pictures to say, look at this. This is after these assaults. These people weren't even with the Enterprise anymore, weren't with Combs Enterprise, or weren't working for Diddy. They just genuinely love Diddy, right? Okay. Garrigo says the public can't see it, so it should be fine. The judge says fine. They were gonna bring the jury in, but the courtroom deputy says one juror has a transit issue. We're inquiring about it, and the judge says okay, we'll wait. So they then get a break real quick, and they pretty much start up about 40 minutes ago, which is 9:26. Actually, more than 40 minutes ago. It's about an hour ago. The judge says, so we do have all our juries. We're going to start in 5 minutes. Combs got taken to the back into a holding cell by the U.S. Marshals. He'll be brought back in before the jurors are brought in. And then 9:28, that's when it kicks off. All rise, right? The judge starts off by saying, listen, Mr. Ignifilio, are you prepared to proceed with the defense closing? He says, yes. And this is where he starts laying it down. Okay, so this is the closing, ladies and gentlemen. Let me actually send out a tweet, too, about what we cover in here. Give me 1 second. This is the finale, chat. Well, yeah, this is the finale. This is the finale. Because we're not going to hear any more arguments. We're going to be pretty much doing our own closings. We're going to be doing, I want to be able to debate with you if you feel he's going to get found guilty or he's not going to get found guilty on certain things. And we're going to do that and go over the case and probably look at transcripts and other things that will probably get released by then, including exhibits, while we wait on Monday. So Monday, we're going to be locked in for potentially 8 hours because a verdict could come at any time. And that's going to happen for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday is the 4th, I believe. And am I right on my days? Yeah. Thursday is the 4th. Yeah, Thursday is the 3rd. No, never mind. Monday is the 30th. My bad. So it's going to happen for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And court won't be happening on Thursday or Friday. So if they don't come to a verdict in 3 days, which they'll usually have about 8 hours each day, if they can't come to a verdict in, 24 hours, right? Right, 8 times plus 8 plus 8, yeah, 24 hours. They're then going to come back the week after. All right, so can I send out a damn tweet? And don't worry here, Chad. I got to get a little bit lively to read these. Like, I love reading crosses because it's like, I feel like I'm giving the cross. Or not giving the cross. I mean, closing arguments. Because it's like I'm giving the closing arguments type shit. It's like practice for my non-existent law career, right? Hope y'all doing well today. Okay. Just typing up this tweet. There we go. All right, cool. So this is the closing arguments for Diddy's team. Mark Agnifilo is the one who is tasked with this process. It makes sense. He was the lead and the only defense attorney at first. He was the number one. He's the person who's been in court. He's been doing a lot of procedural stuff. He has cross-reference, or not cross-reference. He's cross-examining a few witnesses. Even though I think Tenney is doing the heavy lifting, I think Westmoreland did an amazing job, and I think Brian Steele was a sniper. We are seeing that Agnifilo is going to be wrapping up this case with a closing statement. Now, he didn't deliver opening statement. That was done by Tenney Garagos. However, this is the time that if he could give an impassioned delivery that is going to last in the jurors' minds. Remember, they're not going to be voting on this until Monday, right? So he's going to be pretty much almost the last word. Not really the last word because the rebuttal is going to come back in. But you gotta really earn the millions of dollars you've built Diddy right goddamn now, okay? So this is how it goes, chat. We have the judge says, Mr. Agnifilo, You ready to do your thing? He says, let's go. He's now addressing the jury. And here's the difference about I keep saying this stuff wrong. Final arguments, right? By the time you get to closing statements, by the time you get to closing statements, okay, by the time you get to closing statements, it's more editorialized and you're arguing and you're usually looking towards the juror, right? You're looking towards the jury. You're basically giving them a speech, right? As opposed to when you have a witness on the stand, a lot of times when the witness is speaking, the judge might instruct the witness not to look at the jury or might instruct you as a prosecutor or a defense attorney to focus on the witness rather than give testimony yourself, which you might be saying stuff to aim towards the jury. So this is your time to address the jury, right? Ignifilo says, hey, listen, man, this is a trial that's set forth by the text messages you see. There's a trial out of the prosecutor's mouth. They're different. The trial from the evidence, what is it? Let's break it down. Is it personal use of drugs? That's it? Yeah, that and swingers? A lifestyle? The prosecutors have charged this guy for one of the most serious statutes on the book. They called threesomes and drugs RICO. I want to thank you for your service to our country, people. He's talking to the jury. I would love to speak to you for days. I would. But it's Friday, and I'm trying to be efficient. I got a lot to cover for you, all right? But I'll focus on the most important aspect of Mr. Combs. Sean Combs is a self-made black entrepreneur. He has built real businesses that are so outstanding that others create partnerships with them. We heard from Derek Ferguson. It's hard to be Sean Combs. How many witnesses said they were moved by Sean Combs? None. The assistants were moved by Sean Combs. What the fuck? The assistants were moved? Okay, whatever. It was like Harvard Business School. He pushed me hard. Oh, they're talking about his motivation. He pushed me hard. Did they always like him? No. Let's not even go there. Did they like him? No, but they loved him. Even the ones who are suing him. Mia, I'm not even going to call her Mia because that's not even her name. I'm going to call her the witness who testified as Mia. Remember Derek Ferguson from the Bronx? He said they were not hiring people like me from the Bronx. There's something more to these businesses, people. Sometimes the real things in life are hard. No one remembers the easy days. The people grew. It was real. It was diversity. These days, DEI? Combs was doing that at 24. Hilarious. You know what they're basically saying, right? They're like, yo, Diddy was giving people who didn't deserve a job on some DEI shit. Wow. The prosecutors call his business racketeering. That's the fake trial. What happens? He gets arrested. They destroy his property. They have a SRT, which is a special response team. They're clandestine. They can't follow with the camera. Rampant. They ran. His kids were there. Okay? His kids were there. They're talking about the raid on I believe, the Star Island mansion, or no, I think this was the one in LA, where they sent in a drone and the drone couldn't keep up with people. That's when they went through with the big guns, you know? They were worried that people might be running to get guns. All right. It said his kids were there. And here, 6 of 7 in the second row. The 7th is an infant. This is who he is. The man takes care of people. Jane came here and testified against him. Today, she's living in a house that he's paying for. And they found it. Boxes of Astroglide taken off the street. And they got baby oil. Ooh. And the personal drugs? Oh, America's now safer with them, right? They found 5 Valium pills. Yeah, America's much safer now, right? When you're doing work like that, we can't photograph you. That's the evidence. What do? They wrapped yellow crime scene tape figuratively around his bedroom and the hotel rooms he goes to with his girlfriends. That's a lot of crime scene tapes. The crime scene is your private sex life. No one called 911. They called civil plaintiff lawyers. This case is about money. Cassie Ventura sues Sean Combs for $30 million because he got $30 million. If he doesn't have it, no civil lawsuit. No civil lawsuit, no criminal case. This case is about 5 damn minutes. It's about love. Love has been said more than 800 times in this trial. The domestic violence, we own it. We own it. He did it. We did not ask Miss Ventura about being hit, being kicked, or being dragged. We did not cross Jane about being hit, being kicked, or being dragged either. But domestic violence is not what Diddy's charged for. If he was charged for that, he would have pled guilty because he did it. But what he didn't do is racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He ain't kidnapped or bribed nobody. To see their relationship is to see everything racketeers is not. I'm not going to go through all the text messages, but I'll go through some of them or do too much charge to screen time. It's a terrible thing. Screen time, I'm told. Listen, I'm going to tell you the story of this case. They fell in love. Cassie had a boyfriend of 3 years, 10 years older than her, but she meets Mr. Combs. They're off to the races. Mr. Combs rents a boat. They make love for the first time on the boat. They're in an intense relationship for 11 years. Cassie's smart. She flat out won. She got $30 million. He's in jail. You probably know that. The nice looking men behind him, they're U.S. Marshals. They keep him safe. Cassie has won 100-0. They tell you she's a victim. This is a great modern love story. They didn't write these in the past because they didn't have these problems. He had 6 kids at the time. It's a relationship based on love. Cassie said she was young and insanely jealous. If you're in the jury room and you don't want to go home, read their text messages at the time of the breakup. You'll cry. They were selfless with each other when it wasn't going to work for the original sin of the relationship. That Gina wouldn't even come here, but she's out here. Kim Porter passed away, and Mr. Combs said what he said, which is, by the way, he said that was a true love of his life. For Cassie, that was the last straw. She made an adult choice. She left, like she could always leave. What happened when she left? Nothing. Pick up a message from 2018 and read it. These two people loved each other. If racketeer and conspiracy had an opposite, it would be their relationship. They were their best selves when it came to sex. There were times that Sean Combs was proud. On sex, they found each other. It was a beautiful thing. You won't find one single text message where she says, I didn't like that sex. It was an 11-year relationship. The issues were jealousy and other women. But they matched up when it comes to sex. They were swingers. She's a woman who loves sex. And she's beautiful too. She's unafraid. And let's talk about that sucker Kid Cudi. He came in here. I'm not even mean to be judgy and everything, but Kid Cudi comes in here and says, Cassie played me. She did. She did play him. She played him like a fiddle. She played them both. Not everybody could do that. She goes for it. She liked Sean Combs. She liked Sean Combs as she had a relationship with another singer, songwriter under his nose. She's not afraid of him. Why would she have another relationship with another man in Diddy's industry if she's afraid of him? Was she going to tell either? No. Cassie was keeping a gangster. Oh, shit. The lawyer is saying Cassie's keeping a gangster. Oh, no. I think cooking? What's the temperature right now? What's the temperature? She's keeping a gangster. She's like, I'm going to lie to both. So they say Cassie played Kid Cudi and Diddy. Lie to both of them. Cassie gets a burner phone. Oh, okay. Finally. That's what you expect in a racketeering case. She's the one who got the burner phone, not Diddy. You expect there's going to be burner phones. But who gets the burner phone? Cassie. The morning of December 22nd, 2021. The whole thing with Kid Cudi and all that. She had, I think they must have meant 2011. I think that's 2011 or 2012 because 2021 they were over. The whole thing with Kid Cudi and all that. She had 2 hotel rooms. Whoa. A room for the burner. She was not going to tell nobody nothing. Let's talk racketeering. The judge is going to give you a legal charge later today, assuming the first one is the 2004 kidnapping of Capricorn Clark. Let's talk about her. She said, I wanted my life back. Capricorn Clark's parents passed away when she was young. I don't mean no disrespect. She told you. I'm happy she did. Others didn't tell you about their parents. She moved to the Bronx. She meets Sean Combs. She goes super platonic. What? I think she means she didn't want it to be platonic. She's out there. You can see it. She says, you know, I had the biggest crush on you. She's texting Diddy all this. So she wanted Diddy. I think we misused our dope chemistry. So they're saying Capricorn Clark, who claims to be a victim, she wanted to get fucked by Diddy too. If she was kidnapped, why does she go back to him and work for him? She's getting her nails done with Mike B. He's going to be mad at me. She says she called 1440 and said, lock in everybody. She got the lie detector, and Mike B did too. How is she kidnapped? If she went home every day, how is she kidnapped? Yeah, she went to the warehouse, but went home. Is the government alleging that there was 5 separate kidnappings? Because they drove her to the spot, brought her home, drove her to the spot, brought her home. Door-to-door kidnapping? The Southern District of New York is charging this as kidnapping? You serious? This ain't kidnapping. You guys come here after day, long days, you come back the next. Have y'all been kidnapped? He's asking the jury. Have you been kidnapped? No, right? At the time, Sean Combs is in Raising in the Sun. Okay? He's running Vote or Die. He could care less about this. The lie detector was a former FBI guy. You guys have the right to say, yeah, that sounds like a stretch. Ooh, why charge it as a kidnapping? Well, come to whatever answer you think is the right answer. But let's just say this. Capricorn leaves for a year. She makes more money. Then she comes right back. Why? Next, Sean and Cassie, they're having a little freak off. It's only a little freak off. What's the problem? It's December 22nd, 2011. Cassie got 2 hotel rooms. Combs look at her non-burner phone, sees a message with Cece about Cuddy, maybe called Scott in the text, something about hiking. Huh? Why would Diddy have a gun? He goes to get Capricorn. Why? Why would she have to do anything with him? Go to the moon. He didn't need a gun. He didn't have a gun. Cuddy said Cassie told Cuddy that Cassie already told Combs. Are you following me? Sean Combs got nothing to gain by having a gun. He has everything to lose. He's Sean Combs. Capricorn would love to have stayed employed. If he pulled a gun on her. What? She would have loved to stay employed if he pulled a gun on her? It's a question. Would she have loved to stay employed if he pulled a gun on her? No fucking way. You know why? It didn't happen. There was no goddamn gun. Cuddy said that Capricorn said Combs had a gun. Because there was no gun, and let's start working backwards. Cuddy didn't tell the police about a gun. It was written up as a trespass, and that's all. There was no gun. Capricorn's story fell apart. There was a car chase. Or was there even a car chase? Cuddy pulled up to an Escalade. Okay. That's what the witness said. There was no car chase, though. The judge is going to say you could disregard any witness if you find something not credible. If you see fit, that's all you need. Seems like everything is possible, Capricorn Clark. I asked her. She said, I came up here with Puff. I want to run away. I'm afraid of mountain lions. Mountain lions? I'm not saying they're not scary, but if you were kidnapped with a gun, like, come on. She don't want to tell y'all the truth, okay? She went there with her own volition. I'm not saying Sean Combs ain't go there. He went there. He probably wanted to fight him. Think about it. Fucking his bitch. He wanted to fight him. He wanted to square up fight. Okay, fine. Come on. Oh, Agnifilo curses. Motherfucker, come on now. You want to fight the motherfucker. Combs, one thing he is and one thing he isn't. He's definitely ain't no fucking coward. He is always ready to fight. At the risk of being sexist, they're men. They fight, okay? We're going to have a good old-fashioned 8 in the morning Hollywood Hills John Wayne fight. I don't know about his strategy, chat. He's conceding a lot, but like he's giving us alternate theories. Like he's giving us alternate theories in a closing when witnesses have testified to other things. And some of this stuff is like, Yeah, Diddy was showing up to square up. Okay, cool. All right. Anyway, the Porsche, man, that's not his style. There's no evidence. Who else would do it? There is no evidence. Burning a car is cowardice. Be a man and fight him. Okay. Wait, hold on now. Yo, Brian Steele is sitting back and be like, as long as my check cleared, bro. As long as my check cleared. I got to get back to Fulton County to go kick it with Jeffrey. Okay? Young, truly humbled under God. All right? I got to get back to Fulton County because what is this nigga doing right now? So now we're getting this idea that Diddy showed up to squabble and didn't have a gun. Or maybe he's presenting it. See, we're not in court. I think he's presenting it in a way to say, Capricorn's story is like bullshit. Okay, we concede. He found out Kid Cudi smashing his girl. He wants to go confront him. But, yeah, he probably trying to confront him to fight. Like, where does this gun thing come about? Kid Cudi never said he had a gun. Kid Cudi never said he had a gun. Right? He probably just wanted to fight. Maybe they were going to just have like a random fight in the morning. Do you get, I guess that's the realm he's going, like, you get how we could just assume anything? This ain't about assumptions here. We got to know as a fact. If one person says something, the other person doesn't say it, like, come on. So maybe he's going on that type of train of thought with it, okay? Nifilo says, what's in the car? It's a Molotov cocktail, right? Why not show you the glove? I am suggesting something. Yeah. That investigation stunk. It's terrible. There's 2 fingerprints. What happened? Well, I don't know. You're going to determine the fate on his arson allegation on this? Okay, he's wrapping it back up. Okay, we are waiting for some tweets here. We're caught up. We're caught up in real time. All right.
Okay, here we are. Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, Thursday, June 27th. It's day 32 of the U.S. versus Sean Combs trial. Today, the defense closings. We're on our way in. Yesterday, the prosecution's closing by AUSA Slavic brought together a lot of threads, I will say. It's not so much the law when actually described in that context, not just on the dry piece of paper of a jury charge, but actually described orally to a jury, made it seem pretty easy to convict him. Because it said, and I'm saying this just like, it changed my view in the sense that there's a lot of things they don't have to find. On the transportation for prostitution or commercial sex work charge, they don't really have to show intent or anything. It seems very tricky. And on the RICO, they just have to find 2 incidents, and they can even be the same predicate. Those who thought that the U.S. letter dropping theories of liability concerning arson and kidnapping and aiding and abetting sex trafficking would result in a substantially different closing were incorrect. We're incorrect because it was all there. There was multiple references to Kid Cudi. There were multiple references to Capricorn Clark. So I think it would have been better to have, we've got a lot of noise pollution here, but so be it. I think it would have been better for the defense. Okay, we've got a garbage truck. We've got some we've got some trees being cut down, so apologies all around. In fact, okay, well, sorry for the noise pollution. This courthouse area is incredible, and I don't know. Actually, the city council here micromanages so many things. I'm kind of surprised they haven't gotten into the whole noise situation. In any event, we're heading in for the defense conference. Now there's big news everywhere. There's the big, beautiful bill. Will it get done by July 4th? What about this Senate Parliament?
Okay. All right. Waiting for some tweets here. I think Mark Agnifilo brought it home on this arson allegation, but he's further, the kidnapping, because he's alleging, well, how could she be kidnapped but she went home every day? But the way how kidnapping works, as per the letter of the law, you could go home. It's all about holding someone against their will when they have shown intent or a desire to leave. and usually you're holding them against their will forcefully. Kidnapping could be standing in the door frame, and they couldn't leave, and they had to withstand questioning for an hour. It doesn't have to be a full day. After the hour, you might step out of the door frame and let them walk out. But for that 1 hour, you did commit kidnapping. So that was an interesting way of how they try to put or explain this kidnapping or lack thereof in terms of evidence about kidnapping, when they're saying, yeah, we admit, the security did drive this woman to this place, but we don't admit that we held her against her will. Well, she testified that she was held against her will. She testified that she wanted to leave. Now, granted, she's saying this years after. We don't know. When we start going over the case during deliberation, we'll see if we could go back to the transcripts to see what evidence was produced that maybe she had communicated, whether during, before, or after, that she did not want to go to this place, or she wanted to leave, or she did not want to go with Paulie at all, right? According to what Agnifilo said, hey, like, you guys got it feels like they were saying that you guys were almost complicit with doing this lie detector, so you were down for this. Like, yeah, you guys were down for it. Diddy also had nothing to do with this, right? So that's two defenses of that allegation. Diddy was on the stage. I think Raising the Sun is like a Broadway play or something like that he was in. He was doing something else. The security team brought this up, and y'all were down for it. I said, oh, let's do it, right? Because you wanted to prove your innocence, right? You want to prove that you were not a thief. Because, the idea was that Diddy was trying to root out the mole, the fucking rat, whoever would be doing such things. Ignifilo says the DNA is consistent with a female contributor. The witness was not helpful. If it had come back consistent with Combs, they would have bragged about it. The investor Jimenez never followed up. He tried to find Cassie. Jimenez says Capricorn brother obstructed him. They fought. I'm not saying Capricorn did it or Cassie did it. We're not to solve the world's problem. Cassie's father didn't call him back. The witness was mad. Draw your own conclusion. That's a really good point. So when they're doing the arson investigation, hold on, my mom is calling me.
Involved allegations with minors.
Give me 1 second. She needs me for 1 second.
Anything about the minors, it wasn't
this?
anything that was brought up in the courthouse behind me. So what are your thoughts about all of that for the future? Could it be some sort of class action lawsuit like our viewer was saying?
From a civil standpoint, there is an opportunity you have to have a class certified in order to bring a class action lawsuit. So they would have to essentially investigate all of these individual plaintiffs. When I say they, I mean the plaintiff attorney bringing the class action lawsuit would have to essentially vet all of these 30 or however many individuals there are to then build what's called a class, go before the court and say, hey, we have a certified class in this specific situation against Sean Combs, and then they would have to present evidence in order to be certified as a class action lawsuit from a civil standpoint. As far as the fact that there were minors that were potentially mentioned that were not, sometimes that is a strategy standpoint to not bring minors in. It's also possible these children who have parents who would not allow them to testify, right? They are minors, which means they have a guardian or a parent that can say, hey, no, we're not putting our child through this. And in that case, you can't subpoena a child, right? You can subpoena a grown-up, but you can't subpoena a kid. So in that case, maybe there was a situation where they weren't able to do enough vetting to build the case for the minors specifically.
We do have another viewer question too. This is from Kelly B's 6578, and she says, what's the maximum, a number, if a judge decided to make them consecutive? You said decades. Is that 30 years or 60 years? And thank you for asking. This is a really good question. And I think it's pretty straightforward. Could be life. could be the rest of his life, all of it, if he's found guilty, especially if the RAC is hearing. What do you think, Will, and this is down the line, obviously, if there's any sort of conviction in this, when it came time for sentencing, I mean, are we thinking consecutive, concurrent? And again, this is all speculation because there hasn't been any sort of verdict. We don't know if it's mixed or a full sweep or what it is, but what does it tend to generally lean toward?
I mean, we're really trying to use our ESP powers and read tea leaves here, and that's very, very difficult to do. If I were going to guess, and it is literally just a guess, I would imagine that there would be a sentence of around 20 years. And I'm not quite pulling that out of thin air, but I'm pretty close. And as we talked about before, Combs is 55, and respectfully, that's not that old. But nevertheless, for him to spend any time incarcerated, for anyone to spend any time incarcerated is dramatic and can be terrible. But I would imagine that we're probably talking about a 20-year sentence, give or take.
To your point, that is all speculation right now. I mean, there has not been any sort of deliberations even. In fact, we're still in the closing arguments right now from the defense. And we do have some more updates from court. This is Mark Agnifilo once again. He's the one who's presenting the closings for the defense. He's still talking about this situation with Kid Cudi, Capricorn Clark, an alleged kidnapping, and then, of course, the alleged arson. Here's what he says. What's in the car? Molotov cocktail. Why not show you the glove? I'm suggesting something? Yes. The investigation stunk. It's terrible. 2 fingerprints. What happened? Well, I don't know. You're going to determine his fate on arson, on this. And again, he's talking about all of the situations that the investigation after Kid Cudi, reported this and spoke with police. And then there's that glove, the driving glove that was there. Agnifilo went on to say the DNA was consistent with a female contributor. That witness was not helpful. If it had come back consistent with Combs, they would have bragged about it. Investigator Jimenez never followed up. He tried to find Cassie. He said Jimenez said Capricorn's brother obstructed him. They fought. I'm not saying Capricorn did it or Cassie did it. We're not here to solve the world's problems. Cassie's father didn't call him back. The witness was mad. Draw your own conclusions. Wow. Okay, so he says he's not here to solve the world's problems, and he's bringing up Cassie and Capricorn. This is fiery to me. Aaliyah, what are you thinking?
Remember how back in the day we had, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit? Remember that? Yeah, we remember that, right? So in this instance, right, the same argument we're trying to make now. I'm not going to say that I think OJ did it. OJ did go off and then write a book and say, if I did it, here's how I did it, right? Take that what you may. But the arguments that he's trying to make here is, hey, look, the DNA wasn't a match, so it couldn't have happened. That also speaks to the RICO charge. Why would Sean Combs go and do it? Now, I'm not saying Sean Combs did it.
Nah, bullshit. That arson predicate offense in the RICO charge is bullshit. I mean, come on. Like, we're gonna call it fair here, okay? No one said Diddy did it. Not one person. There's an allegation that says, oh, Diddy blew up your car. But nobody described how he did it. No one talked to the police. It's now Cassie claiming years later that Diddy did it, and Capricorn Clark claiming he did it, but they never told the police that back in the day. And then Kid Cudi saying, well, Cassie told me he did it, but then also admitting that Cassie played him. Here's the reality of the investigation. The investigation was scuffed. They found a female contributor DNA on the scene, right? So here's the thing. There was a female there. Maybe let's say Diddy did do it. A female helped. None of the people testifying mentioned, oh, no, I was there with Diddy. I cut the hole open. I climbed on top of the vehicle. Then he threw the thing in there. No, so it's like the DNA points to a female, but y'all are trying to blame it on Diddy. Then when they try to get up with Cassie back then to get like this, statement that maybe Diddy did it, Cassie doesn't return the phone call. They call Cassie's dad. He doesn't call back, right? And Capricorn Clark, basically, Capricorn Clark's brother obstructed the investigation, right? So it's like, if anything, I'm going to be honest with you, other than the word of mouth now I mean, even then too, they were saying Diddy. The actual evidence was pointing to a woman, not a man. So here's an email. See, Ignifilo. She says, why she call him Sean Puffy Combs? For some later proof, she don't mention any car. Forget it. Let's turn to the London hotel. If you want to go to someone's house, it's not kidnapping. It's unfair. Cassie is public too. Remember, Cassie also didn't want the tape out. She had a movie coming out. Let's get back to what was said about the hotel staff leaking the footage. They were worried about publicity, not a misdemeanor. Guess what happened? It was sold, right? The police were nowhere near this situation. Is Combs acting like a fool, calling Cassie and saying the police are about to arrest him? She's freezing him out, as she should. He's trying to get her attention. He leaves. He goes to her apartment. So they're basically saying that that's not obstruction at all. It was all about, and again, I kind of agree with that too. I don't think he's obstructing by paying or bribing by paying that money unless he, well, I guess it could get into bribery because he had asked for their IDs and also kind of almost made it sure like, yo, this can't be communicated to the cops. Now, there's like a very fine line of, was the cops already involved? Were the cops investigating this, or did he just prevent it from being investigated? Who knows? But he's still claiming it was only for the purposes of publicity because that would harm their career. Okay. Ignifilo says he's banging on her door, maybe with a hammer. Kerry Morgan said that. That's why the police came. A neighbor called. The Intercontinental Hotel has no police, period. So he cannot be guilty of bribery under California law. Ooh, okay. So he's making a point I'm saying. They're saying if the police was never called, you can't bribe somebody because there's no investigation. There was no record with LAPD about this beating in the Intercontinental Hotel. So paying for a video to be deleted or disappeared doesn't mean that you're trying to bribe someone under California criminal law. It could very well just mean you're trying to protect your image, right? I think that's a compelling point. I see a lot of people keep using these things. It doesn't mean he did not do it. Do people not understand that in a criminal case, it's about creating reasonable doubt? This is why I didn't put no one on the stand. Like, none of this argument is saying Diddy absolutely never did it. What they're saying is that there is too much doubt that he didn't do it. So how the hell could you convict him of doing it? Arson. There's female DNA. They don't investigate that. They hit up both females. Both females just start bullshitting. They ask them for statements. Nothing. No one puts Diddy at the scene. No one, like, there's nothing that connects Diddy to it. There's a glove in the car. They don't investigate that. They take Kid Cudi's word. What's up? That is the reasonable doubt to say, we're not even saying he didn't do it, even though they kind of are. They're like, nah, he didn't do it. But it's like, even if you think he did it, we've given you enough doubt that you can't say he absolutely did it without a shadow of a doubt, right?
The Diddy live coverage is
one
now
person's
the
outside.
Season of Law and Crime's podcast, The Rise and Fall of Diddy, which is hosted by our guy Jesse.
Civil standpoint, there is an opportunity you have to have a class certified in order to bring a class action lawsuit.
There we go.
You know, Combs is 55, and respectfully, that's not that old. But nevertheless, for him to spend any time incarcerated, for anyone to spend any time incarcerated is dramatic and can be terrible. But I would imagine that we're probably talking about a 20-year sentence, give or take.
To your point, that is all speculation right now. I mean, there has not been any sort of deliberations even. In fact, we're still in the closing arguments right now from the defense. And we do have some more updates from court. This is Mark Agnifilo once again. He's the one who's presenting the closings for the defense. He's still talking about the situation with Kid Cudi, Capricorn Clark, an alleged kidnapping, and then, of course, the alleged arson. Here's what he says. What's in the car? Molotov cocktail. Why not show you the glove? I'm suggesting something? Yes. The investigation stunk. It's terrible. 2 fingerprints What happened? Well, I don't know. You're going to determine his fate on arson, on this. And again, he's talking about all of the situations that the investigation after Kid Cudi, reported this and spoke with police. And then there's that glove, the driving glove that was there. Agnifilo went on to say the DNA was consistent with a female contributor. That witness was not helpful. If it had come back consistent with Combs, they would have bragged about it. Investigator Jimenez never followed up. He tried to find Cassie. He said Jimenez said Capricorn's brother obstructed him. They fought. I'm not saying Capricorn did it or Cassie did it. We're not here to solve the world's problems. Cassie's father didn't call him back. The witness was mad. Draw your own conclusions. Wow. Okay, so he says he's not here to solve the world's problems, and he's bringing up Cassie and Capricorn. This is fiery to me. Aaliyah, what are you thinking?
Remember how back in the day?
Okay. It's gonna take a while for us to get pretty much everything. Let's hear their conversation about KK.
That it is. I think at minimum they're just trying to create bias, because I can believe that this person might have had a crush on this individual or might have been interested in dating him, and I can also believe that this person kidnapped me. So I think the two things can be true.
One thing I'm noticing as just comparing yesterday to today is there has not been one Christina Coram reference in Sean Combs' defense, where yesterday she came up multiple times. Diddy's right-hand person. She was really a ghost in this trial because she's mentioned so many times as you see a picture of her, but she didn't testify. William, what role does she play in the final moments of this trial? And what do you make of Diddy not mentioning someone, Diddy's defense not mentioning someone who was there for so many Diddy's defense not mentioning someone who was there for so many stories that the prosecution told?
Sure. I think she was a very important non-witness for the prosecution. I mean, she was, for all intents and purposes, an unindicted co-conspirator. So for the racketeering...
Yeah, I don't think Diddy's team, the burden's not on them to explain all this Christina Coram stuff. It's like, she's not here. You don't have her in cuffs. She's not a co-defendant. She's not a witness. So this is literally this is pretty much a figment of the, imagination at this point, unless you have the woman in court, right? They're creating this idea of this woman. However, it's not on Diddy to argue about her, because at the end of the day, it might be taken in context, or it could be looked at and be like, nah, this woman was the actual criminal. Diddy's not. Diddy doesn't have to defend her. She's not charged.
Conspiracy issue, we need to show that it wasn't just one person. The government needs to prove that there was more than one person involved in these crimes, and they have her. And they can point to things that she did. They can point to things that she helped orchestrate. And she was, for all intents and purposes, an unindicted co-conspirator. I don't think that the defense has anything to gain by mentioning her once. Because again, remember, the prosecution gets to give a rebuttal argument after the defense closing argument. So if the defense attorney starts talking about, where's KK? Why didn't she testify? Or anything along those lines, that opens the door for the prosecution to just hammer home that this wasn't just Sean Combs doing these things. And they need to show that it wasn't just him. He was sort of on top of the pyramid, if you will, and there are other people there. She's one right under him. So I'm not surprised that the defense is staying away from that. I would. But again, she's important. She's been important throughout the course of this trial.
When this goes to the jury, which we believe is going to be on Monday, according to the judge this morning, Aaliyah, how likely is it that the jurors will sit around and be like, why wasn't she called?
We're saying it now. Yeah,
I think that's a fair question, and I think they would definitely be thinking about that. I think that it also speaks to the fact that neither of the sides called KK, right? She was also not offered by Sean Combs as well. So I think that also leads to that whole argument as to maybe she would have been beneficial to the prosecution, maybe she would have been beneficial to the defense, but I would be asking the same question. Well, why didn't she testify? The prosecution might come back and say, even though you did not see her physically in the courtroom, you have heard from her, you have heard these text messages, you have heard all the witnesses mention her and how she has been involved. So maybe they're just going to try to rely on the fact that even though she wasn't in the courtroom, she was in the courtroom. But I would definitely be asking myself that question as well if I'm a juror. Like, well, why didn't we see her?
Well, we only have a couple more minutes to go until we're at the bottom of the hour, and then Sierra Gillespie is going to pick things up for us here on the Law and Crime live stream as we follow Diddy's closing arguments. So let's get right to it, William. I mean, at this point, we've heard part of what the closing is from the defense, and I know Aaliyah's kind of smiling. She knows the question that's coming, and probably the one that so many people just want to know. How do you see this finishing?
I think that Mr. Combs is going to be found guilty of at least 3, if not all 5 of the charges that are remaining. Probably all 5.
Which one is his best chance of being found not guilty of?
The sex trafficking of Jane.
Interesting. Why so?
Because I think that is murkier. I think that it certainly isn't as clear cut as Cassie Ventura.
Prostitution.
I think it isn't as clear cut as the racketeering. I think it isn't as clear cut as the transporting of the sex workers. I mean, the transporting of the sex workers is practically a gimme. I think that there's almost nothing the defense attorneys are going to be able to do to rewind that. It's going to happen, and he's going to be found guilty of this, and I really do feel that way. And I think
well, we're going to see how that's argued, right? Because those are two. Remember, I told you those are the 2 charges. If my prediction is Diddy gets found guilty on 2 out of 5, max 3 out of 5. I don't see him being found guilty on 5 out of 5. But if he does get found guilty on 5 out of 5, he's cooked. Like, he's never coming home. But 3 out of 5, he's still going for 20 years because you're guilty of sex trafficking, whether it's Cassie or Jane, and that's enough to put you in jail for 20 years. Let's think that they've done enough of a great job to beat the RICO, right? Which, again, I usually tell you, people don't beat RICOs, right? They usually don't beat RICOs. I know people like to say, well, Young Thug did it. No, he didn't. He took a plea, right? He took a non-negotiated plea, which means he still pled guilty. If Diddy's, and by the way, that's not a federal RICO, that's a Fonnie Willis state RICO. If Diddy beats this federal RICO, which, by the way, you know, I've been trying to look to see who's defeated that in the. I'll do some research on that. Who has won a RICO case in the SDNY? It's the toughest district that prosecutes the biggest crimes. Number of successful RICO prosecutions. No. It says successful. We need to see acquittal. Gang related. These are people that got, you know, all of these got RICOs. The Genovese family, Lucchesi, Colombo. This was like they were targeting the mafia and such forth. I want to see who beat it. Who beat the RICO? Who has acquitted? Let's see. Oh, they got acquitted. These are individuals. Okay. There's a few. He was acquitted in a murder conspiracy charges of a RICO. Okay, so there is possible. Some civil RICO. Who cares about that? All right. So it is possible. Now, usually the people who get acquitted are the lesser members, if you can see with this. So it was a context of a RICO charge. I think if I remember well with this case, they had other people that was the real target of the RICO, and this was supposedly just one of the people who was facilitating like the murder. And I guess, you know, it's like saying someone was a part of the plot, but they weren't really a part of the plot. But you put them in on the RICO, but they beat the RICO because they weren't really on the plot. The RICO's usually targeted after the main guy, and then the lieutenants, and then it kind of comes all the way down. So the way how they do RICO's in a lot of cases is that you want to get the guys at the bottom who they'll be spooked because they don't have resources and third. You get them to flip up, right? You get them to flip up, and that will give you a stronger case to get the guy at the top. But that's the way, remember, RICO's is for a conspiracy. It's this idea that I have a lot of money. I'm not going to do the murders myself, but I'm going to get my homies to do the murders. Or I'm going to get my homies to get the guys to do the murders. So then I have like 2 degrees of separation. How did they ever get to me? this is how you charge and get to the guy, right? So I gotta specifically fine tune the search to see the top guy on a RICO charge. Now, granted, this is a one-man RICO with Diddy, so he is the top guy, right? He's the top guy, but I don't know if we've seen a top guy beat a federal RICO. Somebody says, I'll put 10K on this, less than 5. Yeah, we're going to do some more research about this. I want to see acquittal. Let me see. Latin Kings. All right, we'll see. All right, let's get to some more tweets here. If you don't know, today is D-Day. Pause. All pun intended, but not really. Diddy is going to have his last word in front of the jury. After this, is only going to be the judge and the prosecutor. Then it's going to go to deliberation. His life and his freedom hangs in the balance. His family's all in court. All of his supporters are in court. We're going to look at video shortly to see if we can find videos of his family showing up for this day. All of his kids, 7 of them, they are in court. Well, actually, 6 of 7 are in court except the baby. The baby is like 2 years old. It wouldn't make sense to probably be in there crying the whole time. So everybody's there. I believe the baby mamas are there. I know his mother is there. But he has several baby mamas. They're there. It would be interesting to see who else shows up, which these people might be just supporters or business associates. Like, and if, by the way, actually, I'm trying to think. I was thinking maybe if Ye wanted to be impactful, today was the day he should show up. But no, too much of a distraction. If Ye shows up today, distraction, right? And you need the jury to focus. The jury has to focus. So, yeah, maybe you don't bring out if the high-profile people didn't show up before, don't show up today. Today is friends and families, really close people. Shows that Diddy has a lot of backing. And you know what might happen as well? Maybe some of the people who Diddy could have brought to the stand, maybe they show up, right? Because then it shows, hey, listen, yeah, we didn't bring these people as our witnesses, but make no mistake about it, they're not against us. I think that's what Tory tried. I think Tory tried that with the driver. The driver showed up the last day of court. The driver showed up the last day of court, and I felt that was a message to send to the jury, hey, this guy who you are hearing about, like, he still fucks with Tory. And if Tory did something wrong, he wouldn't be showing up, almost kind of sitting in, looking out for Tory. He wouldn't do that. He would have just not shown up at all. But he's showing up on the last day because he cares about Tory, even though he didn't take the stand. He believes in Tory, and maybe that's a little bit of a shining light that Tory is innocent. So we'll figure that out in a second. All right. So it says, and Mia, the witness who testifies to Mia, said she was out of Skrilla. She said she was out of Skrilla. That should have told you. Sean was concerned about Cassie suing him. He wasn't aware of any federal investigation, if there was one. So that's not obstruction either. So it's basically saying him calling Cassie or trying to call Mia or having D-Rock contact Mia was not to prevent a federal indictment. It was about the Cassie lawsuit. So again, if there's no federal inquiry or investigation, it's not obstruction. Ignifilo says he was trying to stave off a lawsuit. And when it comes to Jane, he still might get a lawsuit. The judge says, should we break here? It says, this would be fine. Okay. All right, they're taking a break. They look like they're either coming back, but Comey is addressing the judge before the break is over. He says, I didn't want to object, but he asked the jury why the prosecutor charged as they did. We need a curative instruction after the break. He told the jury that the Intercontinental incident was a misdemeanor. That's curative instructions. So basically saying he's giving the instructions to the jury. Well, this is Diddy's chance to frame it in the light he wants to frame. Yes, the Intercontinental incident would be a misdemeanor if it's seen as domestic violence, right? Comey says Ignifilo told the jury Combs is charged with arson. That's not the case. It's actually a RICO predicate. And the judge says, Ignifilo, Ignifilo says, I was going to get to RICO on rest. It's a fair comment. The judge says, you said, why are they charging a kidnapping? You can ask that. So it looked like he's agreeing a bit. Ignifilo says, I think I'm allowed to be sarcastic. That's what I was doing there. In the Intercontinental video, it says, it's a state matter, not federal. It's a fair comment. It says, can the government propose? It says, yes, after the break. Okay, so they're going to have a break. Wow.
I think Cassie Ventura, such a key witness, very important, brutal testimony, and I don't think that the defense scored enough points on cross-examination. I don't know that they could score enough points on cross-examination. Same thing with the racketeering. There's a lot here. When Aaliyah was talking before about is water wet, Sean Combs knows he's committing a crime when you hand a guy, $10,000 in a brown paper bag to get a video. That's problematic. That's bribery. There's no way around it. That witness testified under a grant of immunity because he himself had criminal liability as a result of the things he did at the behest of Combs. The Kid Cudi incident, again, he's not charged with attempted arson, meaning Combs isn't charged with attempted arson, but it certainly does come in there as a predicate offense for the racketeering. So all those things hit. If there's anything the defense attorney can home in on, it's the other sex trafficking charge. And again, sometimes, not always, sometimes the jury does want to reach a kind of comprehensive or some sort of verdict where they give something to both sides. So maybe what they basically do in the jury room is say, look, we have all this evidence. He is absolutely guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of these charges. This one's a little squishier. And since the government hasn't proved it beyond a reasonable doubt, we're going to find him not guilty of that. I'm not sure that it's that much. I'm not sure that they're there. But if there's one charge that the defense team could have some leeway with, it would be that one. But as far as the other four goes, I think it's going to be found guilty.
I'm happy you brought up the brown bag of cash because I think, and this is just my opinion, that Eddie Garcia, who is the security guard, that story he told about the Intercontinental Hotel, having the video, Christina Coram allegedly hounding him to turn this video over, and then he goes to meet Sean Combs at an LA high-rise. The big security guards there are intimidating him. Sean Combs calls him Eddie, my angel, and counts out $100,000 with a money counter like you see in a mob movie. If I was a juror, that's something to me that would just be in my head, especially when you're trying to make the link to, was the guy that was a regular on Ellen actually something more close to being like John Gotti or Al Capone? Aaliyah, how do you see this finishing?
I think the same as my colleague has said earlier. I think the Jane Doe sex trafficking is a little bit more difficult. I think it has left a poor taste in the jurors' mouths that she is still receiving a benefit of it. I think her rent is $10,000 a month that is still being paid. I don't think that anyone, a normal person, a reasonable person, would think that you're being coerced if you have $10,000 rent being paid, because most people don't have $10,000 a month in rent, right? Most people would say this individual could have gotten away from him, got herself a little studio apartment for, what is the going rate in Manhattan? $3,500 now, and then going on. But I think all of the other crimes, there's going to be a conviction.
I think she lives in LA too. She lives in LA, not Manhattan.
I think what's very, very important for everyone who is watching to remember, Cassie Ventura did not want to testify in this trial. She had to be subpoenaed by the prosecution to testify. So that whole argument of it's a money grab and this is what she's going after, she wanted to go away quietly. And
I see the thing with Law and Crimes, they're so anti-Diddy. And again, I don't know if I come off as pro-Diddy a lot, but I'm trying to be fair here. Cassie got $20 million before the federal case. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? She got $20 million already. Oh, no, she didn't care about money. She shook him down for $20 million. Then she got $10 million from the Intercontinental Hotel. That's not about money? That's not about money? Aaliyah Roberts, or whatever her name is, Aaliyah Roberts, to be fair and be respectful, she's clearly anti-Diddy, right? Surely. Cassie testified in this case because there is a reasonable argument that Diddy could make that she's a co-conspirator and she did all this. Keep in mind the two charges I think he's going to get sent away for or going to get found guilty on is the prostitution. Cassie called all the prostitutes. Cassie paid them from handing them money directly. Cassie did that. There's a way to look at this to say she's not a fucking victim. She's just as guilty of prostitution like Diddy. Like, this is, come on now. Like, oh, Cassie didn't want to. This is what I'm saying. The idea of Cassie being pregnant up on that stand. Yo, if you get a juror like her, Cassie's so sympathetic, she couldn't harm her fly. She couldn't, like, even Kid Cudi gets up there and says, yo, Shorty finessed me too. She lied to me, she lied to Diddy, played us both like a fiddle. Oh no, Cassie's this innocent angel everybody's beating up on and everybody's lying to and manipulating. She's so scared. Da, da, da. Cassie already had $20 million before. What is this chick talking about?
She was forced to testify under a subpoena because, as we know, if you don't, answer a subpoena, you go to jail. So I think it's really, really important for our viewers to remember this is not something she herself wanted to do.
Yeah, she testified she testified for immunity. They started looking at behavior that she was involved in as criminal, and the best thing to do is get immunity and cooperate. So that's why she testified. She didn't testify. She wasn't like this unwilling participant to testify. No, she will testify. Like, first of all, not only is she testifying, she didn't even testify as Jane Doe. She says, I'm going to testify as Cassandra Ventura. What? What is this like Cassie's like on? No, Cassie is making a strategic decision. Hey, I want to make sure I have no legal liability for these things that now they're claiming it's a crime, even though I first alleged these things in a lawsuit and I got $20 million for it. I'm going to now make sure I never could be charged for none of this stuff that I did, which is whether it's for her doing things to Sean Combs, right? Her doing things to anybody else, or her hiring prostitutes.
And especially with how pregnant she was at the time. I mean, who in their final weeks of a pregnancy wants to be going through, allegedly the worst moments of your life in a federal trial? Thank you both so much for joining me this morning. This was a lot of fun. Very important testimony going on. Aaliyah Roberts, trial attorney, William Corman, criminal defense attorney. Both of you are awesome. Sierra Gillespie is going to be taking my spot after this quick break, continuing on with both of them. We'll see you.
Okay.
And she basically said that Christy Slavic, who did the closing for the prosecution, was basically reading off of her notes. And no shade to her. I mean, it was very long closings, but she didn't have a lot of emotion. And so I'm wondering if Mark Agnifilo might, though, just based on his personality, Mark the Shark, as I sometimes call him. Aaliyah, what are you thinking? Do you think he's got big personality in all of this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I said before, when you are presenting closing, this is your moment to shine, right? If any of my fellow theater kids out there remember,
literally decades behind bars.
And I mean, if we think about it too, he's 55 years old. He spent almost the past year at MDC Brooklyn, which isn't the Ritz or, the Intercontinental Hotel for that matter. It's not one of these amazing hotels. I think, any sort of sentence like that where we have decades could be the rest of his life. I mean, it's definitely wearing. Let's go to another viewer question now. I have two. This is A. Bex 5009. She says, says, so the defense won't bring anyone, and that's the end. Did people want to support him, or what happened there? What are you thinking about that one, Aaliyah? I mean, they didn't call anyone.
No, they did not. They had a list of proposed people to call, and I think we talked about this briefly yesterday. I think someone from I don't know if it's Revolt or Bad Boy or Human Resources of one of his multi-named companies was supposed to appear, right? I think that they thought about that because on Cross, that individual is now going to open the door to even more of the support for RICO, especially if we start talking about accounting and what was paid out of a business account for the freak offs or for transporting these sex workers, right? Or for buying baby oil and the other substance that was used. I think that there were two more witnesses that were purported to be called, but they were not called. I think it's very, very interesting that there was not one person that was produced. I'm sure as a viewer, like myself, you're thinking, well, why didn't they do that. It's strategy, right? Some people were thinking that Sean Combs was going to testify. I'm glad he didn't. I think that would have been a bad move on the defense counsel's part. But, you know, there was no one to actually speak to any portion of this on the defense side. And I think the jury is going to think about that. Whether or not, you know, they use it to credit the weight of their decision or not is a different story. But they're definitely going to be thinking about the fact that no one came and spoke on behalf of the defense.
I tend to agree with you, Aaliyah. First of all, I think that it's a great choice by P. Diddy not to take the stand, although I would have loved to see it and hear what he had to say. But as far as calling no one zero witnesses, that is puzzling to me, and I agree with you that the jury is going to be thinking about that. I mean, they heard 6 or 7 weeks from the government, then they heard the closing arguments. They're expecting to hear something from the defense and just get nothing. I mean, I think it's going to be something in their brains at the very least.
Again, I'm definitely not criticizing that strategy not to bring anyone. I think there was some damning things in this case. The only people you could bring would be trying to attack the 3 most serious charges, because actually I think they could have brought some people. They could have brought some sex workers, but the sex workers were going to open up more. Here's what I'm saying to sex workers. You bring someone who says, hey, listen, yo, Diddy only approached me to dance for him. When I would come over and I would be dancing, or I'm escorting, I'm spending time, like, yeah, a lot of times we would have sex, or he would want me to have sex with his girl, but that wasn't a job. I wasn't being paid for sex. Maybe that could help Diddy, but then I think those charges, I feel like, have already been proven. I feel like they would just start investigating or start prying for that sex worker to describe Cassie's demeanor. Did she always look like she was into it? Did you ever hear him scream at her? Did you ever see her, down? Like, what would happen afterwards? And maybe that would fuck up the entire situation, right? So trying to like bring someone to absolve you from this prostitution charge might make the idea of Cassie being sex trafficked even more pronounced, because you have someone else who has to testify about how they slept with her and how it was and how the setup was, which, again, I think even by the admission of not only Jane Doe and Cassie, but also the few sex workers we heard from, it was very routine, right? It was like, yo, we said this, the anatomy of a freak-off. You sit over there, Diddy has a chair in the corner, y'all oil each other up, do oral sex. Diddy would basically instruct y'all, okay, all right, cool. Now I want to see, you fuck her like this, and whatever. And apparently with certain performers, they felt like Diddy would be like, yo, I pull out of her. It's my turn now. You know what I mean? On some Skip Bayless shit. But in others, he supposedly would never interact with Cassie or have sex with Cassie until the mail came and Cassie would run to the room and he would follow behind, or sometimes he'll walk to the room. And I guess that was almost like a social cue to Cassie, like, yo, I'm going to go in the room, get that nut out, okay? Get that nut out and bring it up in here. You feel me? So I know it sounds nasty, but again, we can't put a nigga in jail because he likes semen. You know what I mean? We could call him gay because that's what he is. He gay. But put him in jail if it's consensual, non-coerced, and all that type of stuff is, yeah.
And we've been talking a lot about our viewers. Thank you so much for interacting with us. We have a poll that was up. It was, can a relationship with domestic violence be a great modern love story? Because, of course, in his closings, Mark Anifilo compares Cassie and Diddy to a great modern love story. But then we have these domestic violence situations. I mean, we've all seen that Intercontinental video at this point. So here's what our viewers said. Yes, 11% said it could be a great modern love story. 80% said no, and 9% said unsure. So I'm going to ask you about that one, Will. What are you thinking? I mean, domestic violence plays a huge role in this case, but he's not charged with it. So is that difficult for jurors to kind of parse out when they're in the deliberation room?
So I think that from the beginning of this case, the defense counsel has basically talked about how this is a domestic violence case, and that's all this is. And I think that's what they have to do, because we can't do anything about that video. It's right there. It's almost, I know it isn't technically exhibit number one, but in the jury's mind and in my mind, it is exhibit number one. I am very wary of the idea that a relationship that's full of domestic violence is a modern love story. I take issue with that. If I were the prosecution in my rebuttal, I would be all over that, because I think that's somewhat offensive to suggest. And with all due respect to the 11% of the folks in the poll who think that that is a modern love story, that's troubling. And it's certainly not something that I would harp on if I were a defense counsel at all. That's a tricky way to view a relationship, and probably not a proper one, and not one that would score many points.
I think you brought up a great point. It is really troubling, because not only do we have all of the people who are involved in this, I mean, we're talking Cassie or Jane, who are the survivors in this. We have jurors who live their lives. They have their relationships. We don't know what went on in their past relationships. So let's say they're, had an incident at some point in their past that something went, off. They're thinking about that and hearing, was that a modern love story? I don't know. So I tend to agree with you about that too, Will. And by the way, we do have some updates straight from court, so I'm going to read them to you now. This is Mark Agnifilo still going on with the closing argument.
Okay, I think we had caught up there before. All right, hopefully this break is over. It's not lunch break yet, or is it lunch break? It's been a 22-minute break. I think today's a shorter day, I believe, especially since they're not doing deliberations. Okay. Is our fave right here, Lauren. Okay. Let's see if we can find the videos of Combs' family arriving to court. I want to see how it looks today. Let's look at it. Okay. That's 23 hours ago. Here we go. I thought we were watching a bunch of shorts, weren't we? No, we're watching a bunch of shorts. Fuck, I can't find them. Oh, right here, right here. Let's see if they recorded shit for today. Latest. Oh, no, that's from yesterday.
Kristen, good morning. I mean, Justin, sorry.
I would love to see who's up in the courtroom today. I know it's packed outside that bitch. Definitely packed out there. This is a scene outside of the court.
Might be a bad guy. He might not.
Reported, there wasn't that much going on. I thought maybe there would be a bigger crowd. Today, we got that bigger crowd. I think a lot of people are anticipating that these closings are going to be pretty fiery from Mark Agnifilo. So I think people wanted to see it. And already, right when I got here, it was probably around 7:45. There was already a line out the door of people who were, ready to go into the courtroom, maybe even the overflow room. And Diddy's family was arriving early too. Yesterday, they arrived a bit later, maybe around 9 or 9:30. But today, we were just showing some video I noticed on the live stream that we had captured from around 8 o'clock. So we saw some of Diddy's family coming in multiple cars, going into the courtroom. So you know that they're there to support him today during this really, really important set of arguments from the defense.
It's so important. And again, I mean, the prosecution called nearly 40 witnesses over 7 weeks. Diddy's defense team didn't call any today. Those closing arguments expected to begin really any moment. Typically, they'll debate some stuff at the beginning of the day in court, and then they'll get started. So we'll wait and see for those updates to come in. Sierra Gillespie outside the courthouse live in Lower Manhattan. Thanks, Sierra. We appreciate it. We have a great panel of experts today, as we always do during the prosecution lay out their case to the jury one more time. It was described, and our Elizabeth Milner, who's been in the courtroom every day, said Diddy wasn't really looking at the prosecutor. He was kind of just staring off into the distance. It was described that he was pushed back from the desk. As a body language expert and a jury consultant, what does that tell you?
He's distancing. So when you're actively involved, you're leaning forward. When you're thinking and contemplating, you're leaning sideways. When you're leaning back, you're now distancing. So when you see somebody leaning back, it's also considering that it's finished, right? It's kind of like the words, it is finished. So he leans back. A lot of times we see this when there's like in a business negotiation or deal, when a deal's been reached or when there is a finish to something, the person will lean back. The fact that he's actually staring out into space is a little bit different. You add that to the leaning back, and he's going through probably deep reflection, right? He's pondering all of these things and thoughts and feelings that he has throughout the trial and listening to this prosecutor. So there's a combination of emotions that are going on, but he certainly has distanced himself from it and disengaging.
Now, there's a picture that I want to bring up, a sketch from yesterday, and it was when Sean Combs returned, I think, after lunch. The prosecution went for 2 hours, then they took a lunch break, and then they finished up in their closing arguments. And it's kind of a sight that we've seen before with Diddy. He's got this huge smile on his face. He's making the heart hand symbol. Members of his family, they were in the gallery yesterday, as they've been for a good portion of this trial. What does that type of emotion tell you as you take a look at a picture here of him kind of waving at his family members? But more importantly, seeing him do that, what kind of impact can that have on a jury, just kind of observing Sean Combs?
Sure. So we know that he's very demonstrative. He sends nonverbal signals throughout the trial. There was facial expressions, his hand movements, his eye lifts, his eyebrow, raises, his leaning, his hand, and all of a sudden yeses and nos, right? So he's using a lot of this demonstrative gesturing when he's doing that. But when he's giving that heart signal, he's motioning over to other people, right? I got this. And he feels like he's being loved, and he's sending and receiving love, right, from either people that are out in the gallery. And as also with the jury that is seeing this, he's sending the message that he has emotion, right? Because a lot of times when we see these horrible allegations, we often see a very flat affect. Now he's showing this big smile. He feels very empowered. He feels like things are going well for him. He's happy about it, and he's sending love, giving and receiving.
Tyler, for you as a criminal defense attorney, when it comes to body language, as we're taking a look at some video here of members of Diddy's family arriving in court here in Lower Manhattan, you can see the media surrounding them as they make their way into the courthouse to go into the courtroom, where they will see their dad, who's been locked up in the MDC, and then in New York since September of last year. Tyler, what type of body language do you try to send when you're giving a closing argument that can be effective with the jury?
One thing is, if the prosecution seems or presents a case as if it's open and shut, it's an easy case, it's easy for them to make a decision, it's to show that you're serious in your demeanor, in your closing. Let the jury know that this is somebody whose life is on the line, that there's a chance that he's going to spend every day in jail for the rest of his life if he's convicted. Although you can't get into the sentencing and things like that of that nature, but you can raise the stakes to the jury by your body language, by your voice inflection, by your demeanor, by the speed of how you walk, things of that nature go a long way in presenting a strong closing for the defense.
Now, Susan, yesterday it was reported that Christy Slavic, who is the assistant U.S. attorney who gave the closing argument for the government, she and she had to go for 4 hours. And she really, I think when you read the transcript, it was kind of fact, trying to lay out and streamline the past 7 weeks of testimony that these jurors have heard. She read off of a prepared statement. She was reading from a lectern. When you see the way that attorneys and everybody involved with this case is a very successful attorney, prosecution, and defense, but what are the most effective ways to communicate to jurors in key moments like this?
Sure. The main thing is that your nonverbals are in sync with their verbal language. So that's the main thing too. So what I look for, and I think the jury also will be able to pick up whether it's genuine or not, is that are they in sync? Do the gestures match up to the words, to their tone? Like as if my colleague was saying, your tone, your rhythm, your pace, your volume, all of that all sends a signal. So if you want to make a point, then you need to also use your pauses and hesitations. There's a lot of vocal techniques that you can use to be able to really seal the deal or seal the message. So the main thing is that I look for is the synchronization of what they say and what their body language says. The other thing is that you want to keep their body language within their frame. When a person is very confident what they're saying, and they're very poignant in it, then their gesturing stays within that frame. When an attorney starts to flay off, is basically kind of going off the grid, it can look a little bit disjointed. So the main thing is making really good eye contact, not piercing on eye contact, but on the other hand, make sure that everything is in sync together, and it'll naturally flow, Chris, when you really believe it. So that's the big thing. You can't fake it to make it. Either you believe it or you don't believe it. But if you try to push it, it's going to come across as being inauthentic, and the jury's is going to be able to read right through that.
Yeah, and to Tyler's point, and especially in this case, if you're a juror and you think of someone, the profession that sticks out to me is the juror who's a deli clerk, and they're 30 years old, and they're about to decide whether or not Sean Combs, who's someone I'm sure they grew up watching, whether he could go to prison for the rest of his life. So to Tyler's point, you got to be authentic in that moment in laying out the stakes. I want to bring in the third member of our panel right now, Aaliyah Roberts, trial attorney. We just got an update from the courtroom that the judge has said that the judge has entered and confirmed that deliberations will start Monday, which is what we were expecting. And I want to take our first question from the chat. This is from Show and Tell Knitting. And Aaliyah, I'll let you get started for us. What do attorneys look for in body language of prospective jurors during voir dire when they're picking the jurors, kind of interviewing them and determining whether or not they're a good fit for a jury in a trial?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I think that when you are picking a jury in voir dire, you want to make sure that they're leaning in and paying attention. You want to make sure that they can actually hear you, what they're saying. They're not looking down. They're not looking at their phone. They're not looking at their watch, trying to get out early or trying to have an excuse to leave early. You want to really look at them leaning in, really focus on what they're saying, really attentively listening. And that's how you can pick a good juror, because you know that they're going to actually be listening to you when it's time to present the evidence. And in this case, specifically, when the last day with closing arguments.
And Tyler, we'll dive into what Diddy's defense team is saying once the closing arguments actually begin. But as far as a timeline of how long it could take to present that closing argument from the defense, earlier this week, they said he was going to take a little less than 3 hours. Compared to the prosecution, they went all day yesterday for roughly 4 hours. Why would the defense not want to, especially when you don't call any witnesses? You didn't call any witnesses in this trial. Why go shorter than the prosecution?
Well, the defense's theme is clearly that the prosecution has not proved the elements of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. They're probably going to hinge on the fact that most of the interactions between Mr. Combs and the victims was consensual. They'll try to nail down facts to show that there were no criminal enterprise. The difference between the defense is the prosecution has to prove these things. The defense just has to point out how the prosecution has failed to prove their case. And I think that's what the overarching theme has been this entire case. When they've cross-examined witnesses, they try to attack little small facts to show things may have been consensual or it wasn't a real criminal enterprise. And on the closing, I just see them trying to reiterate those things and bring them to the attention of the jury one last time.
Susan, we don't have any updates as of yet of what Sean Combs, what he seems like, what his demeanor is today. But there was a big moment heading into closing arguments earlier this week, that moment when the judge asked Diddy how he was doing, and Diddy said fine. And then he went a step further and said, Judge, by the way, something along the lines of, I think you're doing a great job. When you compare, you take that moment, you kind of line it up with, he was nodding at the jury, he got scolded for that. Or Elizabeth Milner has said that he also was making eye contact with each juror when they enter the courtroom throughout the trial. What did that moment earlier this week tell you about Sean Combs?
Well, he's trying to build rapport with everybody, right? He's trying to build rapport with the judge. And the thing is, it's patronizing. You're doing a great job, but the judge doesn't need the pat on the back, right? It's going to come across as a bit condescending and inauthentic. And the fact that he's making eye contact, he's basically saying that I acknowledge you, I see you are present. I'm present with you. How often do they actually get to meet eye to eye with a huge, big celebrity like him? He knows that power. He's using it to his advantage, and it can work, especially if the other person is actually looking at him straight in the eye. But leaning forward, telling the judge, you're doing a great job is really shows can for the judge can appear as biased. So in other words, you're doing a great job. It's almost like the law of reciprocity. If I tell you something good, you're going to send something back good to me. And the other thing is I want to mention about the jury. The one thing that you really want to look for is the low eye blinking, right? Because that's concentration. I'm listening. When a person's feeling anxiety or cognitive load, you see a little flutter. So when you, just like my colleague said, leaning forward, and you want to see low blink rate compared to their baseline. That's saying they're paying attention.
Aaliyah, I want to get another question coming in from our chat, and we appreciate everybody who's dropping questions in already. We'll be asking them throughout the day here on Law and Crime, as we're going to be live tracking Diddy's closing arguments. September Everything asks, would there be any issues if the jury came back within an hour of being handed the case? And now we know for sure that the jury is going to be getting this case on Monday.
I don't think there would be any issues, no. I think that if the jury comes back in an hour, that means that they had already made up their minds very early, even though they listened to the rest of the evidence. Maybe they had all agreed that at least some of these charges were proven by the prosecution, if not all of them, and they had enough evidence to make that decision within the hour. I think that if they came back within the hour, I'd be concerned about a not guilty verdict as to a guilty verdict. But I mean, jurors, are finicky, for lack of a better term. Jurors, they're people just like us, especially knowing they've been doing this for 6 weeks, right? It's about to be the 4th of July holiday. They want to get in and get out. So no, I'm not concerned about an hour. I would be concerned if, it was 30 minutes, but an hour might mean they have all that they need.
Susan, as someone who works with defendants, and you're a jury consultant as well, when you think about how Sean Combs has acted in court, what's typically your advice to a defendant, and how does that compare to how you've seen Sean Combs act and try to use, apparently, even if it's in subliminal ways, his celebrity status to try to have an influence on this case?
Yeah, so the thing is that I work with my clients is to creating a more of a neutral expression, not a stone face, not an overexpressive expression, but a neutral facial expression, showing genuine micro gestures or micro facial expressions, but not the overt ones that we see, the ones that are what we call illustrators or emblems. This is an emblem. Like,
they're breaking down Diddy's facial expressions like this is crazy, right? Anyway, there are some more tweets. It appears they came back from the break, 11:35. The judge says, do you have proposed language? Comey says, yes, Ms. Steiner's emailed the defense our proposed curative instructions. Ignifilo says those three were grossly improper. Just be blunt about it. The jury's not to speculate about the charge. The judge says, I will tell them. It would be improper for you to consider that. Yours to disregard those comments. Wow. Alexandra Shapiro says, we did not object yesterday since you called out Mr. Ignifilo. He says, I didn't call out anything. There was an objection. Ooh, okay, that's a little feisty moment. So it looked like Alexander Shapiro was saying, yo, Judge, we let them say whatever yesterday, and we didn't object. We let them do their thing. As soon as we're trying to put this case in our framework, they're now objecting, and you're calling out the lawyer. And the judge says, I didn't call him out. I'm just answering an objection. Shapiro says Ms. Slavic told the jury there might have been guns at the freak-off. There's no evidence of that. That was outrageous. No one was doing anything improper. The judge says, ooh, you made no record of that yesterday. Here, I'm not giving multiple instructions, just one. Shapiro says, we ask you to do it at the end, not now. It will suggest Mr. Ignifilo did something improper. AUSA Comey says, it's needed now. Ooh, okay, that's a good. Shapiro's trying to do her job, but the judge kind of also called her out just now by saying, hey, yeah, you guys could have did the same thing when she suggested that there was guns at the freak-offs yesterday, but you didn't object to it. You made no record of it. Anyway, the jury gets back in. Sean Combs is now leaning over. He whispers to Ignifilo, who takes a note. And let's see what happens. It said, before the break, it was suggested that you consider why this was charged. That's not proper. I will be instructing you on the law. Mr. Ignifilo says, now we'll talk about Mia. She likes working for Mr. Combs. This wasn't forced labor. Remember the birthday video we showed you? She was bubbly, popping. That's the real her. You're free to conclude she put on an act here. If Mr. Combs felt it was improper, he wouldn't threaten to tell Cassie. It was consensual. So basically saying, remember she said whenever they had sex, it was actually sexual assault. They're putting it in context and say, well, if he sexually assaulted you, why would he threaten to tell someone that he sexually assaulted you? That kind of don't make no sense, right? Okay. Ignifilo says, when Mia says it wasn't consensual, she's not telling the truth. There was no unwanted sexual conduct. Mia's feelings were not platonic. Steele questioned her about those wonderful pictures and slogans. Effusive, not just a job. Remember, Mia used to call Diddy like chalk. He used to call Mia chalk, right? She had very like playful nicknames for Diddy. Okay.
Arguments for the defense. He's talking about Kid Cudi now. He says Cudi didn't say that Capricorn said Combs had a gun because there was no gun. Working backward, Cudi didn't tell the police about a gun. It was written up as a trespass. That's all. There's no gun. Capricorn's story falls apart. He goes on to say there was the car chase. Or was there? And again, this goes to what Aaliyah was talking about before. I do think he's being dramatic here. He goes on to say, Cudi pulled up next to the Escalade. The witness said there was no car chase. The judge is going to say you can disregard any witness if you find something not credible. If you see fit, it's all you need. He goes on to say, seems like everything is possible with Capricorn Clark. I asked her. She said, I came up here with Puff. I want to run away. I'm afraid of mountain lions. Mountain lions? I'm not saying they are scary, but if you were kidnapped by a gun, no. He goes on to say then, she, meaning Capricorn Clark, doesn't want to say, I went there by my own volition. I'm not saying Sean Combs didn't go there. He wanted to fight him, fine. Mother effer. Combs is not a coward. He's ready to fight. At the risk of being sexist, they are men. They fight. And here's the last update for now that I have for you. We're going to have a good old-fashioned 8 in the morning Hollywood Hills John Wayne fight. The Porsche, not his style. There's no evidence. Who else would do it? No evidence. Burning a car is cowardice. Be a man and fight him. Okay, I think he's going in guns a-blazing, Aaliyah. What are you thinking about this? Because, of course, this was a huge topic of conversation, you know.
She don't fuck with Diddy at all, bro.
Actually, some people were thinking, okay, maybe the arson allegations and the kidnapping allegations were dropped. But, I mean, if we read, you know, the paperwork, it was attempted kidnapping, attempted arson. So, of course, the government yesterday touched on those things, you know, arson and kidnapping. And now this is Ignifilo talking about both those things. What are your thoughts with that update, Aaliyah?
Okay, let's begin at the beginning. Diddy couldn't have bombed Kid Cudi because we're men and we don't bomb, we fight. We know that you fight. I think the prosecution is going to have a field day with that. Oh, you're a man and you fight? Like you drug Cassie down the Intercontinental hallway? Like you kicked her? Like you hit her over the head with a frying pan? Like that type of fighting that you do? Diddy, I think that was, at the risk of sounding sexist, there are also women on the panel that like might be like, well, where were we going with this, right? I think, again, we've said time and time again, they have to put something forth. I don't know how beneficial that was, right? I think the defense is saying, yeah, he was there, but he wasn't there to blow up the car. He was there to fight. Well, that's still supporting the argument of why are you fighting Kid Cudi? You're fighting Kid Cudi because Kid Cudi was in a relationship with Cassie and you wanted Cassie and you controlled Cassie, so the answer was no. And that then again supports the argument of persuasion with the use of force and duress that we're talking about regarding the sex trafficking.
I tend to agree with almost everything you're saying there, Aaliyah, because there's a lot to unpack. And I don't know, I'm going to ask you this one, Will. Do you think he's digging himself a hole here? Because we've talked about this modern day love story, which to your point, could be offensive to people. Then we have this thing where he says, at the risk of being sexist, men fight. What are your thoughts on what he just said in closings?
I mean, I can't say it any better than Aaliyah did, but I'm gonna try to buttress what she said to some extent. As a defense attorney, as any attorney giving a closing argument, defense or otherwise, the last thing you want to do is accidentally alienate a juror, because these jurors are the ones who are deciding the guilt or innocence of your client, or whether or not the prosecution, the guilt or innocence of the defendant. And so to risk alienating a juror who may have had a domestic violence incident in their past, or a friend with a domestic violence incident in their past, or who may all of a sudden take offense. I mean, if you're going to get up in front of a jury and say, I hope no one takes offense to this, that's a giant red flag that, hey, somebody might. And that's problematic. I'm a little surprised by this. Now, what would be interesting is, we know that yesterday during the prosecution's closing argument, it was very methodical. They had a lot to get through. There was a lot of reading. Whether or not they are going to be able to pivot and be as emotional in response to defense counsel's argument as defense counsel has been to theirs, because that would be a home run for the prosecution. If they can pivot and go from reading the cold hard facts to now actually feeling some emotion on behalf of the alleged victims in this case and convey that to the jury, it's a guilty across the board if they're able to pull that off.
And I do wonder if that's what it's going to be, kind of a slow burn. Yesterday, the government went through, and it basically was a list of, okay, this year this happened, and here's what you heard from this witness, and laid everything out. And
I ain't gonna lie, Chad, I could tell they definitely don't fuck with Diddy over here. I do think Diddy's rolling the die though, with number one, Mark Agnifilo doing the closing. But also, Mark Agnifilo and some of the things he's saying is like, Anyway, it continues, says, this is demonstrative. You can't take it into the jury room. Consider the scrapbook she made. I'm going to read it to you. Happy 45th birthday, Puff. This is from 1991 to 1999. I hope it stirs up nostalgic feelings. How great you've become. She loved you. You can't fake that. That's real. Don't lose sight of that. It's just not business. He gives people a home. Look at this picture and think of a word that comes to mind. Joy, right? There's KK, D-Rock, Fahim, and I guess they're showing a photo. He created remarkably a special place. He moved people in their hearts and souls. When Mia's being told she's being fired, she's going to have to leave that special place. Mia says, my life is over. KK says, oh my God, what the fuck, Mia? That's not funny.
I'm sure it was a lot to digest, but then if they have the defense with Mark Agnifilo potentially slamming his fist, as we keep saying, and saying things like the modern love story and potentially sexist things, then if you come in, guns ablazing with the government for their rebuttal, I think you're right. I mean, that's the last thing that is going to be in jurors' minds. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. And by the way, we do continue to see your guys' questions, the live stream viewers. And so I have another one. This is from JAM 1035. He says, Sierra, giving the impending civil lawsuits accusing Combs of sexual assault against children or minor youth, could the feds or state bring class action lawsuits, rather? How would they best proceed? And Aaliyah, I'm going to send this one over to you. I was interested in the fact that there were civil lawsuits that involved allegations with minors, and yet when the indictment came down, we didn't see anything about the minors. It wasn't anything that was brought up in the courthouse behind me. So what are your thoughts about all of that for the future? Could it be some sort of class action lawsuit like our viewer was saying?
From a civil standpoint, there is an opportunity you have to have a class certified in order to bring a class action lawsuit. So they would have to essentially investigate all of these individual plaintiffs. When I say they,
it's basically a class action lawsuit already brought by Tony Busby. He just separated.
So the Diddy and Cassie situation has been getting freakier and freakier by the day. The more and more I hear about these allegations, Diddy is a freaky man, the king of the freak-offs. And Cassie, you feel me? She was young, vulnerable. But like what Ak said, she could have left. Like, Diddy was not holding her well. This is what's hard for me. allegedly Diddy wasn't holding her hostage, but she said on the video that came out in the hotel where he hit her over and drug her back, she was trying to leave one of the free calls. And Diddy said, "Oh no, you're not gonna leave the free calls. You got it. Yeah. Wait till the dude bust a nut, allegedly, then all over you, then scrape it off, go in the other room and rub it on my nipples." That's what he wanted. It sounds so crazy to say, but that's what Diddy wanted. Like, we seen him in the robe. I thought he was just fresh out the shower, but allegedly he was probably butt naked. I'm surprised there was no baby oil on her or him, or she wiped it off. That's why he was so mad. It was no baby oil on. Hey man, I genuinely feel bad for Cassie. I feel bad for her husband too, because he has to be in court and he's listening to all these things. And I don't really think Cassie's lying about anything. Like, Cassie just seems like a nice girl, probably like gentle, innocent, like, and she just wanted a career. Like, man, I'm struggling here because I want to be very, very honest about everything, like my point of view. I don't think Diddy was the best of best people, and I think everything he did to Cassie was wrong, and it was definitely manipulative and all that stuff. But like, is it sex trafficking though? Like, this is what he's charged for. Like, domestic violence, yes. Assault, yes. Like, probably a bunch of other crazy stuff, yes. But sex trafficking, bro, I don't know if you could say he was sex trafficking. But it's only day 2 of the trial. And I'm gonna be very, very unbiased about every single thing I say. It's day 2 of the trial. Diddy is he's there every day. They say that he's looking white as hell, he's gray as hell. He's, you feel me? They said he was looking at Cassie the whole time. But day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe 2 weeks later, there might be someone else taking the stand, and we don't know how that's gonna go. Maybe like 3 days later, there's gonna be a new person taking the stand, and they just expose everything about Diddy. Like, we don't know fully everything Diddy's done yet. Like, there might have been men that he was having free calls with. Like, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, Act was the line about what he said. Diddy should just came out and said that he was a flexible, bro. He should just said he was bisexual, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And what Act said, bro, all these rappers gotta come out who was around Diddy, like really, really hung around Diddy and was like really cool with him. They need to come out and like, yeah, yeah, bro. You gotta defend yourself, your integrity. You feel me? But your boy Big Act News. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And do you feel like Diddy's innocent, or do you feel like he's guilty? And we're talking about sex trafficking. Like, we're not talking about is he a good person or not. Do you think he's guilty of sex trafficking, Cassie? It's your boy Big Act News, and I'm out.